Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layout, and today I am here with the Scrapbook Craft Noon, which is a weekly Sunday hop, and Shannon reached out to me and asked if I could be the person that they scrap lift, and I was super excited. So I took a look at several of my layouts, and this is the one that I thought would be perfect for a scrap lift. I did pull out the Simple Stories Harvest Market collection, and I also wanted to show you guys the original sketch, which is from Page Maps in November of 2018. I've used this sketch a couple of times, and I really enjoy it for allowing full-size photos on a layout. For this particular layout, I was able to get 6 photos because I am going to use a flip flap. I mainly focused on these 3 pieces of paper for the layout, which is going to be the yellow polka dot, as well as that really pretty blue floral, and then of course my favorite paper in this collection, which is that pink tone-on-tone heart paper. These are the photos that I'm going to be working with today. These photos are from our fall family photos back in 2022. And my photographer is amazing with her little setups that she has for the photo sessions. For this particular one, she had kind of a farmer's market setup, and I loved it. And these photos were actually the reason that I purchased this collection, because there are little farmer's market embellishment pieces that I knew would be perfect for this layout. So all my photos are 4x6. And I decided that I wanted to mat the 2 photos that are going to be on the left-hand side in a white, because I know that there's going to be a lot of pattern paper. And I decided that I would use the background piece of the layout to mat the photo to kind of save a little bit of paper. This is going to be a problem for me. A lot of problems. So let's get into it. I knew that I was going to also mat the photos on this yellow polka dotted paper, and I knew that it would be large enough to cover up the hole that I had just created in my layout. I'm trying to decide how much of a border I want around my photos, and I ultimately decide on 2 rows of polka dots on the left and right, and 1 row of polka dots on the top and bottom. I then decided that I was going to gut this paper because, that's what I like to do, save as much paper as possible, especially when I'm covering up a large portion with 2 full 4x6 photos. So I get the adhesive down on the yellow paper, remembering to put it on that piece instead of the photos so that I don't adhere my photo to my mat like I've done in the past. And then I pulled out some washi tape just to secure the back of it. And then this is where I lay the photo mat on my layout and realize that I messed up. Even though I have this large piece that's going to cover it, I didn't go far enough to the right in the white cardstock, and I still have a large hole. So I thought to myself, I'm just going to move on and I'll figure it out later. I knew I wanted to have this brown wood grain. It almost looks like a tree, and it's such a pretty color brown on the top and bottom. So I decided to go ahead and cut the bottom at 2 inches and the top at 1 inches. And I am still struggling trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I knew that I wanted my photo in the center there, and I thought, well, maybe I can just move the yellow polka dotted paper over and cover up the hole that way, and then just put some pattern paper on either side. So that's what I decided to do. I went ahead and matted the yellow paper again on this blue floral paper. And this time I am basically measuring the spot to ensure that I have enough room and I'm covering up that hole. I did decide to cut down the blue paper, but then I probably shouldn't have done that because I knew I wanted to add this border to the top, which the sketch calls for. I really should have not cut down the paper first because it changed the size of the paper. But I'm just going with it. It's covering up the hole, which that's all that matters. And I decided that it also needed to be gutted. I don't have this full collection since I did pick it up well after it had come out. So I really was piecing the pieces that I have together from multiple stores. So I went ahead and laid the blue paper down on my background, and I made the mistake of putting my adhesive on the blue paper as well as the yellow polka dot because I did adhere my layout to the mat itself. Luckily, it was only a little piece and I was able to get it up pretty easily. I added some washi tape to the back of it to make sure that everything was secured down, especially since that blue paper was really only covering up just barely the hole that I had made. Then I started to work on the brown pieces, and I knew that I wanted that to look as if it was behind the blue paper, so I did trim it off, and I'm going to have this other floral piece over on the far right hand side, again like the sketch calls for. I really should have made this brown piece of paper the full length of the blue paper. It would have made my life so much easier. And I think that I have made this mistake every time I have used this sketch. So if you're going to scrap lift me, I recommend not following the instructions that I'm doing because I didn't do a very good job with it. It does end up working out in the end, and you can't really tell at all that I had all of these issues with trying to figure everything out, but it was definitely a struggle. I decided that I wanted a transition from the floral to the wood grain, and I first pulled out this pink paper, but I just didn't like it. And I had recently gone through my washi tape, and I remember I had this really thin gold piece in there. I don't tend to use washi tape a lot, but I felt like it was a perfect addition to this particular layout. So I added that small piece of washi tape right next to the florals, and I'm going to add it as well on the right hand side. I then decided that I was going to use this pink tone-on-tone paper for the border at the bottom, and I was going to stitch the holes in this one. This border strip has become one of my favorites because I love the fact that I'm able to already have the holes pierced, and I can very easily stitch on the layout with this border punch. So I'm trying to figure out how large I need to create this pink tone-on-tone paper, and I pulled out my T-square ruler and I measured, and I did not do a very good job. I cut it way too short. Once you lay it down, you can see that I measured the white piece, but I should have measured a little bit further down so that the pink paper could lay further down on the wood grain. I eventually do make it work, but again, this layout definitely was a struggle. So I'm looking through some of the other embellishments trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I thought maybe I could move the photo down just a little bit. Instead of having it overlap the brown paper at the top, it might give me enough, and it did give me a lot. I have a much smaller space to cover up, but it still didn't cover up everything. I finally do get the pink paper down, and I start looking through my papers, and I find this branding strip that has this plaid piece on it, and I really like the plaid paper, but it is such a large print in the full 12 by 12 that the branding strip just gave it just enough to cover it up, as well as it not being a really large print. And so now I finally have the left-hand side of the layout complete, and I'm going to start working on the right-hand side of the layout. As I'm getting these papers down, I do want to encourage you guys to go check out everyone else who is scrap lifting me today. When Shannon reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be a part of this hop, I was super excited. I know this is a hop that she does every single week, and she also has a ton of Disney layouts on her channel. So if you do not follow Shannon, I highly recommend that you check her out because she does have some amazing content. There is a playlist listed below so that you can go and check out everyone who is scrap lifting me and see how different their layout turns out. Hopefully they don't struggle as much as I do on their layout, and they're able to scrap lift me pretty easily. So I've gotten the brown wood grain paper down as well as the floral, and I also added that gold washi tape. And then I decided that I was just going to use the yellow polka dotted paper to cover up the center. I realized that I needed to pull up that washi tape because I wanted it to overlap the yellow polka dotted paper, and luckily it had not adhered down too much, so it was pretty easy to pull it up. Once I got that yellow polka dotted paper down, I then remembered that I wanted to add the pink tone-on-tone paper below it so that it looked like it was flowing across the layout. I pulled out my border punch to cut out the border, and then I'm going to use a scrap from the left-hand side to make sure that I have the same width on this particular piece of paper. Once I get it cut out, I'm going to add it to the bottom of the layout. Now, it does look like it abruptly ends, but I'm actually going to put a lot of embellishments over on the far right hand side, and so I knew that I was going to cover it up. So I didn't worry about trying to match it up with the yellow paper or the washi tape. I then decided to adhere my photos down, and I am lining them up to match the photos on the left-hand side of the layout. And I finally have the base of my layout done. I then pull out my stitching tools and I start to poke holes in the pink tone-on-tone paper. That is really the only stitching that I'm going to do. I then decided that I was going to pull out my threads, and at first I thought I would just use white, but then I thought, this doesn't really have a lot of white base to it, so I decided to pull out my cream colored thread and match that with the tone-on-tone pink hearts. I keep saying tone-on-tone. It's like a really light pink, but it could also be a cream color. The thread that I ended up using is a cream color, and it matches the hearts really well, so maybe it really isn't a tone-on-tone piece of paper. I separated my thread. I use a 6-strand embroidery thread, but I separate them so that I have 3 strands. That's a personal preference. I know some people who use all 6 strands. Some people just use 1 or 2 strands. When you decide to sew on your paper, it's really up to you to decide how big or fat your strands need to be. I'm just doing a simple back stitch. Once I get it started, I do tie a knot on the back of the layout. I did slow the video down here so that you can see the stitching detail on that pink paper. Let me know in the comments below. Do you consider that a pink tone-on-tone paper, or are those cream hearts? I then decided to adhere my photo to the 4x6 card and add it to the pocket page. The 4x6 card says Farmer's Market, and it has a little truck with some pumpkins on it, and I just thought it was super cute with this layout. All right, so then I started to pull out the embellishments and trying to decide what embellishment pieces I wanted to use. I knew that I wanted to have some sort of 3x4 card that I could use over on the left hand side, and I found this really pretty one that's yellow and it's got some florals. I pulled out this tag punch. I picked this up at Hobby Lobby. I really like this punch. It's very similar to the banner punch that I have from Stampin' Up. It has 3 sizes, and each one of the sizes cut out a different type of tag. So I did have to trim the 3x4 photo down because the largest size that it will cut is 2.5. And I added that to the left-hand side of the layout. I then pulled out this little tag here, and I'm actually going to cut out the yellow that's around it and just have the inner piece. And then I also really wanted to use this Harvest Market tag, and I'm going to add that over on the right hand side. I decided that I would trim it down and also pull out my border punch. The sketch calls for a notebook border punch to add your journaling to, so I thought adding that little detail to the bottom of this 3x4 tag would look really nice. I then decided to fussy cut that tag that's going to be on the far right hand side. I don't fussy cut a lot, and usually when I do, it's very simple things like this tag. But I feel like that just looks better without the orange. I decided to lay the tag down flat, and then I pulled out these little Farmer's Market embellishment pieces. There are things like produce, as well as some plants, some bread, milk, just anything that you would really find at a farmer's market. I decided to add 3 over to the far right. 2 of them I do put down flat, and then I put 1 up on fun foam and overlap it a little bit, and it really looks like it would at a farmer's market. Back on the left hand side, I did pull out my twine and added some jute twine to the tag. And then I always use my glue dots because I feel like it allows the twine to stay exactly where I want it, especially since the tag and the twine are so close to the photos. I didn't want them to overlap onto the photos. My title is going to be Market Day, and I added that to the left-hand side. I did decide that I wanted that up on fun foam. I felt like it would give it a lot of dimension against that tag that's there, as well as all of that pattern paper. There's a ton of pattern paper on this layout. Once I get the fun foam on the back of it, I add some liquid adhesive, and then I add my stamping block on top of it to weigh it down so that the glue adheres to the layout. I then wanted to add another one of the farmer market stands. I thought about adding it to the top of the word day, but it didn't fit. So I decided to add it to the other side of the tag, and I do decide to put it on fun foam. So I add some fun foam to it and then add it over to the left-hand side. Then back looking at the the embellishment pieces, I turn to the sticker sheet and I find this orange tree. I add that over on the far right hand side, and then I found this water tower and I wanted it to be behind the tree so it looked like it was a little further back. So I did pull the tree up just a little bit and added it to the right hand side as well. I also found this little chalkboard sign that says 100% fresh, and I loved that. I also found a wheelbarrow that was full of pumpkins, which I thought was perfect since there is a wheelbarrow with pumpkins in our photos. So I added that to the title area. And then I pulled out some word phrases and I found one that says, "Let's go to the market." I added that over to the far right hand side. I also found one that said farmer's market and I added it right next to the trees. I do have the foam stickers and I decided to pull out a couple of the leaves and add it to each one of the clusters. And then I pulled out these enamel dots. I recently picked up these enamel dots at Peachy Cheap. They had a deal and they're really tiny hearts and they're so cute. I love me some tiny enamel hearts. I haven't had a chance to put them in my color boxes yet, but I did decide to add 3 hearts to each one of the clusters in an orange, blue, and green. I did have to pull out my tweezers to get them down because they are so tiny. And then that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. I did add the year 2022 off camera. It's over on the far left-hand side. And then I also journaled offline, and my journaling says, "This adorable little market for our family photos was bursting with cuteness. Eli was in his element as an enthusiastic merchant, practically shoving the biggest pumpkin into my arms. And oh my, he rocked that straw hat like a true pumpkin prince." All right, if you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.